Hello everyone, my name is Mauricio van der Maesen. I'm a digital artist and one of the engineers working at LIMA in preservation of digital art. In this instance of the Transformation Digital Art Symposium, I'm going to be presenting a project we conducted together with Olivia Brown and Eleanor Bernard about 100 Jaar Vrouwenkiesrecht by Zijlstra. This is an example of a VR artwork made specifically for Oculus devices. This artwork was developed in 2019 in celebration of 100 years of women's suffrage. As part of an ongoing study framed by Tate's Preserving Immersive Media project, Tom Enson and Jack McConchy wrote an amazing paper that we used as a guideline for conducting our own research. Our approach was a practical implementation of the recommendations, and we focused on understanding the different manifestations of the work, as well as the interactions between the digital components and the hardware. As a starting point for our research, we were provided with all the code made by Zijlstra. It's a Unity project which contains the Android application that runs in the Oculus. And we were also provided with a 360 degrees version of the video that's also available on YouTube. And with all this, we were able to analyze all the 3D models, the keyframe animations, the scripts, plugins, add-ons, and all the components used in the project. Together with the code for the Unity project and all the assets that I mentioned before, we were also provided with a lot of documents and archival documents collected by the artist, and a video interview with the artist, and also a transcript of the audio tracks included in the artwork. And of course, we were also provided with an Oculus Quest device with the pre-installed artwork, so we could test it ourselves. These were the main questions that we addressed during the research, and we discussed them during a roundtable that we organized as part of the project. And our goal was to find out and to describe the best practices to preserve the software and the hardware components, and also to preserve the experience of the artwork. Documentation on how to ensure the availability of the hardware was also included in the research. To display this work on different platforms, it's necessary to apply several modifications to the Unity project. We tested and we implemented a few migration strategies to eliminate all the deprecated software components, and we replaced some of the components with open source plugins to allow the integration with other VR vendors, and also to help with the long-term preservation of the artwork. We identified and we installed locally all the elements required to successfully create an application from scratch. With that, we made sure that the provided material was sufficient, and once we make sure that an installation was possible, we created disk images with all the development environment. Part of the preservation strategy is to make sure that all these files and backups of these files are securely stored in case of the original hardware fails and needs to be replaced. So we need to make sure that we can reinstall it from the source code. One of our new recommendations was to also create images of code and environment after going through the process of migrating the versions to open source and to long-term supported versions of all the plugins. Before doing that, we recommended that the migrated application is tested on different types of VR headset, so a list of compatible devices can be included as a reference. The outcome of our research included a main document, including all the practical recommendations for preservation strategies of VR artwork. We also included a summary of the roundtable we conducted, and a spreadsheet with an overview of all the archival documents provided by Atria and by the artist, and disk images for preserving this particular project. If there were any questions regarding this project or this presentation, feel free to send me an email to mauricio@lima.nl and I'll be happy to get in touch. Thank you and enjoy the rest of the symposium.
Hi, I'm Gabriella Giannachi. I'm Professor in Performance and New Media at the University of Exeter. I've been privileged enough to be collaborating with Gabi Vias from LIMA, Annette Dekker from University of Amsterdam, Katrina Sluis from National Australian University, and the independent curator Francesca Franco on an HSC-funded project called Documenting Digital Art. The project started in 2019 and will be finishing later this year. We've, through the life of the project, been quite severely affected by the pandemic. We have not been able to visit many of the archives we originally set to visit. We've not been able to hold any live events and meet many of you face to face. However, I'm really pleased to say that we have been able to carry out a lot of our public engagement events, as well as many events with specialist teams from museums and from research centers from all over the world. In that sense, Zoom has been particularly helpful, bringing together people from very remote parts of the world that may not have otherwise been able to afford to come to our live events. So the project has done a number of things at the same time. One is to look back at the use of documentation over time and see how that evolved, not only in digital art, but also in a number of cognate fields, including performance. The project at the same time looked at best practice right now. What are museums doing? What are researchers doing? What are the key priorities? Why have they chosen those to be the key priorities? Museums have been kind enough to share with us a number of key case studies, which have really kind of showcased very well what the best practice is within each and one of them. Finally, we've been looking at the future and thinking about how will documentation still evolve, what is currently being missed. And in particular, this project has been looking at the role of the audience in this field and whether we do enough to encourage audiences to document, to have kind of the point of view of the participant or the point of view of the spectator, and whether we then preserve those documentations or whether we just consider them as a kind of social media chatter. Last but not least, we've done quite a few publications. We've participated in many conferences over the last couple of years. And I'm pleased to say Annette and I are in the last stages of editing the project book, which will be published by Routledge at some point later this year. And in that book, we are looking at documentation as an art form. More to come also is Francesca Franco's exhibition at the Venice Biennale, which will open in May and last until November, and focusing on the work of Vera Molnar, and a number of other workshops to be held at LIMA and still to be held also at the Photographers Gallery. Last but not least, our project framework, our set of recommendations. That's something that is also still forthcoming, and we look forward to working with all of you still on that and hearing back from you what you make of it. Thank you for now.
Hello, my name is Olivia Brown, and I will be providing a brief presentation on a research project I participated in that was conducted on behalf of LIMA and in collaboration with Steina. This project concerned the determination of presentation strategies for Steina's artwork Violin Power, utilizing documentation as an important tool. I will first introduce the artwork and give an overview of those parties who contributed to this research, and then I will discuss the main goals of this project and the questions posed by LIMA that guided it, finally concluding with a brief overview of the documentation and the project outcomes. This research benefited from a collaborative and networked approach to working conducted by a core research group whose names and roles you can see here at the top, and enhanced by input from an experts roundtable conducted July 1st, 2021, as well as that volunteered by the following institutions and individuals whose names have been included here at the bottom. For those who do not know the work, Steina's Violin Power can be broken down into two main parts that show the interaction between Steina's training as a violinist and her career as a video artist. The first is the video artwork Violin Power, which exists in numerous collections and a number of different versions that vary in length, content, and dating. The video shows the evolution of Steina's violin from a musical instrument to a video editing interface. The second part is Steina's reinvestigation of the work as a performance piece, with the first known performance being conducted at the Center for Contemporary Art Santa Fe in 1991. During her performances, she will manipulate video either on a TV wall or a projection using a Zeta violin. This piece was performed at numerous institutions and venues from 1991, with the last performance known to this research recorded in 2013. So here at the top in image number 1, you can see a still from the video Violin Power, and the other 3 images that have been included here are documentation from performances of Violin Power. From the beginning of the project, we had one main goal, which was to determine how best to present Violin Power in LIMA's upcoming exhibition on the digital canon, a task which was made especially difficult when considering Violin Power's both video and performance elements. Therefore, to streamline this process, this research was guided also by the following questions presented by LIMA and included here for your information. These questions isolate the necessity of creating as thorough an understanding as possible of the evolution of the artwork, both technically and conceptually, before a decision could be made concerning what its defining characteristics were, and therefore what was of most importance to present. We did this in part by putting together 2 timelines, one that addressed the development of the technical elements of Violin Power in the context of what was state of the art at the time, which you can see here, and the other which pinpoint as many iterations as possible of Violin Power and related performances. Other performances identified, 5 were chosen for detailed analysis based on their place on the timeline, as well as the presence of documentation of the performance in its entirety. To conclude, I would just like to give a very brief overview of the project outcomes. First and foremost of these was the main research document titled Artwork Documentation Report for Steina's Violin Power, which was created by myself, Mauricio van der Meijsen de Sombreff, Eleanor Bernard, as well as Gabi Viers, and includes a technical and performance timeline, which I have shown you briefly here, documentation of LIMA's version of the Violin Power tape in full, a roundtable summary for the roundtable held on July 1st, 2021, which I've briefly mentioned, a spreadsheet overview of archival documents prioritized for ease of access, interviews with Tom de Meyer, Hannah Bosma, and Martin Sabotnik, partially transcribed also for ease of access, a list of questions for potential interview with Steina, which was unfortunately not able to happen in the scope of this research, mind map for possible scenarios for future exhibition of the work as part of the Digital Canon exhibition, and finally video documentation of past performances of Violin Power and related works, as well as I said before, an analysis of 5 of these key performances for their defining characteristics. Lastly, I want to say thank you for your time and attention. If you have any further questions whatsoever about the content of my presentation, do feel free to contact me. Any immediate questions can be directed to my colleagues, Mauricio van der Meijsen de Sombreff and Gabi Viers, who will be in attendance at the event. Thank you so much.
Hi everybody, my name is Niels Coleman. I work for the Regionaal Archief Zutphen, which is an archival institution for local governments in and around the town of Zutphen in the Netherlands. I am a digital archivist, and besides my work for Zutphen, in 2020 I managed a project for the Dutch Digital Heritage Network, and as the title of this presentation already gives away, it's about digital heritage information on physical carriers. The project I managed was divided in 2 phases. The first was about a study we conducted, and the second was about practical help for Dutch heritage institutions. In the spring of 2020, we set out a survey amongst Dutch heritage institutions, and we wanted to know if institutions are able to cope with digital heritage information on physical carriers. So what kind of carriers do they have? In what quantities? Do they know what information is on it? Is it still accessible? That sort of things. And the reason for the study is that we know that these carriers have a limited lifespan and equipment for access is growing scarce. We had a very good response in both numbers and diversity, so small and big organizations, and a spread amongst every domain like archives, musea, and libraries. And the results were written down in a report. We published the report and did a lot of activity to share the results in the Dutch network. And also it was sent to and picked up by the DPC. The goal was to create awareness of the issue and call for action. And that's also one of the reasons why I do this presentation. So if you are attending this presentation, consider to examine your organization and see if digital heritage on portable media is an issue. And if that is indeed the case, hopefully take action in safeguarding the information before it's too late. There's a link in this presentation to the full report. It is in Dutch, but there's also an English summary on the DPC website. I've summed up a couple of striking results from the study. We see that almost all heritage organizations have these portable media containing digital heritage, and it has not been made permanently accessible within a digital archive. And this occurs in organizations of all sizes and every domain. 75% of the institutions have unique material stored on the portable media, and this is therefore material that does not exist anywhere other than on the physical carriers. And the third result, this is shocking actually, at 40% of the Dutch heritage institutions, material is in danger of being lost. And in some cases, we felt it would be pretty regrettable if that collection material would be lost, because it's an important part of the Dutch heritage. So we conclude that endangered digital heritage on portable media is a big issue, and we assume, and we also know this from foreign studies, that it's probably an issue in your country or maybe even in your organization as well. With the report and all of the communication activity we did, we hope to have convinced heritage organizations to take action now. However, we also know it's not easy. It has to be a matter of prioritizing, allocating budget. You've got to have the technical knowledge, etc. So in the second half of 2020, we created an online environment, a wiki, with information about the most common carriers and manuals that contain steps to safeguard the information. And we use the knowledge that is available with our partners in the network and online and make it low level to use. Also, in collaboration with partners, we set up processing streets with hardware and software. And in those places, heritage institutions are able to read out the content of the carriers themselves, or they can let it do them for them. We search for cooperations with organizations who already have experience with this issue and are able to set up such a processing street. And one of those organizations is the Home Computer Museum in Helmond. They have more than 2,000 working computers with lots of possibilities to read out digital info on physical carriers. And more collaborations are about to come. So if you have trouble safeguarding your digital information, please consult our GitHub wiki page or contact Bart from the Home Computer Network at homecomputermuseum.nl. This was my presentation. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope I have created some awareness about this issue and call for action. Thank you.
Wij zijn Driessens en Verstappen. Ik ben Erwin Driessens.
En ik ben Maria Verstappen. We zijn een duo, een kunstenaarsduo. In 1989 is het begonnen.
Meer dan 30 jaar of zo.
Ja.
Ja.
Ik zou ons werk betitelen als generatieve kunst. En dat doen wij op allerlei manieren, zowel met fysieke processen, maar ook digitale processen en robotica. En nu ook kunstmatige intelligentie.
Zo hebben we bijvoorbeeld ook een serie kietelrobots ontwikkeld.
Intimacy without empathy, unsleeping affection on demand.
is meer ontstaan eigenlijk vanuit de persoonlijke behoefte. Wij zijn namelijk ook een stel. Vaker wel een soort van discussies hadden van... ik heb jou gisteren gestreeld, dus jij bent nu aan de beurt. Dus we dachten, misschien is het ook wel gaaf om dan een machine te ontwikkelen die dat kan. De machine die kan alles doen wat hij wil, maar hij mag niet van het lichaam afvallen. Dus eigenlijk die kleine restrictie, die geeft al voldoende associatie met een levend wezen. Ja, in het begin jaren 90, toen we daarmee begonnen, mensen het toch een aanval vonden op intimiteit die er tussen mensen zou moeten zijn. Maar tegenwoordig zijn die reacties daar niet meer zo op gericht. Je ziet juist dat mensen zijn versmolten eigenlijk inmiddels met technologische machines en ook die binnen je privédomein binnendringen. Dit is het werk met de titel Pareidolia. Pareidolia is de tendens die wij mensen hebben om iets te zien, een gezicht bijvoorbeeld, in iets wat het niet is. Dus deze machine strooit zandkorrels op een plaat en een microscoop neemt het op. En vervolgens is er een gezichtsdetectiesoftware die probeert die zandkorrels eruit te pikken. En zo leggen we eigenlijk een archief aan van zandkorrels die op een gezicht lijken.
Maar ik heb een soort dagboek, een soort logboek. Ja, ik werk ook met allerlei velletjes waar ik dan schetsen op maak, maar die raak ik op een gegeven moment zoek. Maar een file die op je computer staat waar je echt met keywords in kunt zoeken, dat is toch wel ontzettend makkelijk. En ook dingen die niet gelukt zijn, staan er ook allemaal in. Hè. Wat is allemaal niet gelukt? En dat is net zo belangrijk als dat wat wel gelukt is. Als je nu iets gaat zoeken, het eerste wat je doet is achter de computer gaat zitten en iets intypt. Dus de eerste dingen die je vindt zijn digitale archieven die openbaar zijn.
Maar ook dat er op plekken dingen ook echt thematisch gebundeld worden, waardoor je echt ook effectief kunt zoeken. Dat je eigenlijk daarmee je kennis vergroot en je inzicht vergroot in datgene wat je zocht, maar er is nog veel meer.
Dus dat is gewoon echt van wezensbelang.
An experience of something more real. This world is hidden from the human eye. Worlds hidden inside our world. Patterns of an undiscovered universe. A new form of organic.
Quick introduction about myself. My name is Mauricio van der Maesen. I'm an engineer, a maker and an artist. Most of my background comes from computer sciences and software development. And nowadays I'm also a student at the Rietveld Academy of Arts and Design. In this opportunity, I'll be talking about two of my previous projects that presented a few challenges in terms of documentation. First, I'll talk about a project from last year inspired by a workshop given by Erwin Driessens and Maria Verstappen. And I'll follow by a previous project based on the abstract film number 3 from Joost Rekveld. Breed is a computer program that uses artificial evolution to grow sculptures. In this work, Driessens and Verstappen experimented with different industrial techniques to produce unique objects. During my project, I created my own unique computer-generated physical sculptures based on the output of an interactive video installation. The system captures depth images from its surroundings and uses a custom cellular automata algorithm to generate the visuals. At the same time, it generates code to produce printable 3D objects and streams additional data to control the soundscape for the installation. This is an early version of the code, and it's creating visuals from an OSC stream that is based on depth images coming from the sensor. I made a max patch that listens to a different set of OSC messages and generates 8 different audio channels for the soundscape. The image on the left is a screenshot of the working installation. The next one is a 3D model made on SketchUp using Ruby code, followed by the printing process and one of the final pieces. In my previous project, I took inspiration from a film by Joost Rijkveld. The film was made according to a score that specifies changes in color, exposure, camera position, direction and speed of a mechanical system. The score consists of 13 sections that are by design asymmetrical and non-repetitive. The control system in this case is a light attached to the end of a double pendulum with one motor and one free axis as a source of chaotic motion. Instead of that, I chose to control the speed of a vortex and capture the light that bounces on the surface of the water. I started the process by analyzing the intensity and color patterns of every frame of Yoast video. I wrote a shader code that isolates different colors and processed the image to find different blobs of activity for each channel. Then I made a max patch to control a bunch of DMX spotlights according to the dominant colors of the film. The support structure for this installation is quite simple. It holds the vortex, a couple cameras, lights, some electronics, and a white canvas where I collect the reflections. The data is collected in real time from the movie, and the script sends OSC messages to the network to control all the other parts of the installation. These are some light patterns recorded from the projection screen and processed with VDMX. Once I had the first part that analyzes the video and creates a data stream, I started experimenting with different ways of reinterpreting the same data. Here's another example that makes a visualization from the data stream, and a few more. They're all running at the same time based on the network data. In this one I made a mechanical piece that uses the average light intensity of 16 segments in the video. That last one was used for a couple of installations. In this one I shined 3 lights through it to cover a wall. And here I used the projection of its shadow, and I actually used it to create some ambient sound. If there are any questions or comments about my work, you can find more information on my website, and you can find my contact information there as well.
Hello everyone, good evening. My name is Sanneke Huisman and I work as a curator at LIMA. Since 2017, I have been involved in the Digital Canon with a question mark and an exclamation dot project, a research project that aimed and still aims to generate attention for digital art and its history. The project was initiated because of the lack of visibility for historical art pieces, digital art pieces that is, who are more often than not included in museum collections. We wanted to make digital art part of our collective memory. The intention of the project was, however, twofold, or maybe even paradoxical. We wanted to make a canon of digital art, whilst at the same time problematizing all the elements involved. What is digital? What is the Netherlands? And when can a work be ascribed to this geographical area, and why? And what is canonization if not a tool for exclusion, power, and abstraction? Another paradox was that we made a canon of digital art to allow the works and discipline to be fully acknowledged as art, as mainstream modern and contemporary art, that is. But even whilst our tool was imperfect and the methodology not yet defined, we used the principles of canonization to address urgent issues. We made canonization into an activist act. All paradoxes aside, the Digital Canon project at its very core aimed to open a discussion on digital art. In doing so, we wanted to be fully transparent about methodology, selection criteria, and contributors. Our canon was not the canon, but a canon as a conversation starter. The project has carried out by a core group of experts with various backgrounds, consisting of Josephine Bosma, Martijn van Boven, Annette Dekker, Sandra Fauconnier, Jan-Robert Leegte, and LIMA's director Gabriella and myself. After many meetings at different venues, including one at Transmediale, the first phase of the project resulted in 2019 in a list of 20 digital artworks that we believed everyone should know. We have presented them via a dedicated website, digitalcanon.nl. 20 canonical works made between 1960 and 2000 feature on this website, which includes images, documentation material, moving image, and text. On the backside of this website, you'll find articles and notes that give insight in how the canon came about and offers a platform to critical voices. However, the most important part is still this list of artworks, which are, in chronological order, The Censer from 1968, an interactive computer-controlled robotic work by Edward Inatowicz, Computerstructuren from 1969, a series of pioneering computer paintings by Peter Struik, Violin Power from 1969, an interactive sound image performance by Steina, Moiré from 1970, a video made with a self-made synthesizer by Levinus and Jeep van der Bunt, Ideophone 1 from 1970, an installation consisting of 36 loudspeakers by De Kruimakers, Points of View from 1983, an interactive participatory work by Jeffrey Shaw, De Hands from 1984, a digital musical instrument by Michel Rijswijk, Institute of Artificial Art Amsterdam from 1990, an independent organization aiming to completely automate art production by Remco Schaap, Jody.org, a website by Jody from 1995 that is reminiscent of hacker culture, Breed from 1995, a computer program that generates complex and detailed sculptures by Driessen en Verstappen, Mouchette.org from 1996, an online interactive fictional diary of a 13-year-old girl by Martine Dam, Narazoid or Lazoid's Pataverse from 1996, a virtual persona by Yvonne Legrand, Click Club from 1996, a playful critical website by Peter Luining, The Living from 1997 by Deborah Solomon, a performative online project making use of chat and video conference, Being Human from 1997 by Annie Abrahams, a collection of dynamic, interlinked, net-specific works about online communication. Number 11, Marie Moiré from 1999, an abstract 35mm cinemascope by Joost Rekveld. Scoreboard compositions from 2000 by Jan-Robert Leegte, a web-based artwork highlighting the sculptural elements of the net. Spatial Sounds, also from 2000, by Marnix de Nijs and Edwin van der Heijden, an interactive sound installation including a robotic rotating arm. TST, also from 2000, by Bas van Kolwijk, a series of abstract video compositions. And last but not least, Agoraphobica Digitalis, also from 2000, by Lanselmaat, an interactive installation and performance in public space about isolation. This list, however, will remain just a list if no further action will be taken. Or even worse, if no further action is taken, it will be a list of artworks that used to exist. The digital canon is explicitly meant as a signal towards the field of visual art and as a starting point for further acquisition, restoration, and presentation. We are therefore extremely happy to have started investigating the possibilities of making an exhibition with these works together with Het Nieuwe Instituut. We want to get away from the dichotomy between digital art and mainstream and contemporary art to fully focus on researching and exhibiting these works as valuable works of art in their time and in current times. We thereby want to continue the principles of transparency, where the initial digital canon project was based on, by letting the choices that we make along the way resonate in the presentation of the works. We are in the middle of this investigative first phase. We have already formulated 3 questions that currently function as a methodology that gives clues on how to present the works, as well on how to restore and preserve them. These questions we ask are: 1. Why was the work made? 2. What did the work mean in its own time? And 3, what is the work today? Finding out what a work was, how it was made, and what it is or can be in current times affects the way you might present the work as much as it gives clues on how to preserve it. With any form of art, but more specifically in the case of digital art, there's not one way of presenting or one way of preserving. In the upcoming years, we will do research and preservation to reanimate and shine new light on existing works. The final goal is to present, in collaboration with the new institute, one possible exhibition of one possible canon, and to create a climate in which many canons and many exhibitions will follow. Thank you very much.